Recording in progress.
Okay, all right, so whoever hasn't shown up yet, it's going to be their own loss. So just a quick recap what I just said. So if I look at the syllabus really quickly, so it looks like today we have class and then Wednesday we have class. Okay, that was supposed to cover the final two topics that was going to be included in the exam because by Wednesday, transaction and trigger and store procedure and all the functional procedural programming, pseudo programming language in pseudo programming functions within SQL will be given by the lecture, and that will cover everything that you need for your exam. So that therefore that there's no class Monday, July 6th. I was planning on giving you guys that for studying as well as maybe work on your project. I mean, you guys need to prioritize whichever or both, okay? I don't know why July 8th there's no class. I don't know. I think it's because I don't know why there's no class on July 8th. But I guess the syllabus says there's no class because it's following Saturday schedule or something like that. I don't know. So you have a full week to study. Okay. And on the 13th, which is July 13, which is the Monday, you will be given the exam in person. And today I'm actually going to cover that exam, even though we haven't covered all materials. I'm just going to go over about the exam as well. And so I was saying that initially I was planning on July 1st, which is this Wednesday, to be in person, but the heat waves and stuff, I decided to make it not in person. I haven't decided yet whether or not there's a pre-recording available. I need to see how far we go today. Okay, like if it's going to like match up with transaction and trigger of any recording that I did before, or maybe we have to move in onto Zoom. So you guys can do it at you don't have to travel over here for the heat wave coming on Wednesday. Okay. Question. That's first thing. First thing on the schedule wise question. Second question is obviously you guys seen that there's some. I posted on Slack and saying that homework 5, which was originally due last Thursday. Okay. Homework 5, original due last Thursday, and homework 6 was due today, right? So homework 5, when I was checking on Sunday on Brightspace, on my view, there was 0 submission as well as 0 draft, nothing from you guys. Like it was nothing. And I mean, initially I thought you guys maybe forget, but then it's odd to me that, how can the whole class has no submission, right? So it seems like some people actually submitted before the deadline and Brightspace lost it. Brightspace lost everything. So what I would recommend for your own sake, for your own good going forward is take a screenshot when you submit it, like just get yourself your own proof. Okay, because if one day Brightspace decided to do it again and then maybe it's not full class but half of the class, then I'm not going to open to allow everybody to resubmit again. So you should cover your own sake, right? To take screenshot when you submit it, just for your own sake, just in case you need it. Understand? But for homework 5, everybody had a second chance to. I mean, it's not second chance because you're full, but Brightspace really actually lost it, and it's insane. It's actually ridiculous. Like I feel like you guys should complain to Brightspace to the school or whatever. Just because like the school is I don't believe the school has decided to upgrade the version of your Brightspace. And I personally think that it's better if your Brightspace is fully upgraded with Brightspace themselves, just like Microsoft tools, right? Like if your Microsoft is not upgraded to the latest version, maybe it's buggy and stuff like that, right? But that's the case with Brightspace, because my understanding is the version of Brightspace that CUNY uses is, see, CUNY uses Brightspace, but every school has different contracts to get the latest version or not. And I know City College is not on the latest version. And you guys are missing out on a lot of AI stuff, and then also like buggy or whatever. And previously for homework, I used Google Form, for you guys to submit it, but the school prefer you guys to use everything that's within like what school provided. So I don't know, it's just up to you guys to provide feedback on Brightspace or to the school or department on lack of support and bugginess, okay, for your own sake. But anyways, I'm going to actually jump here to cover some exam reviews, okay? So your exam is going to be in person here in 2 weeks on July 13th, I believe, on Monday. Okay, it's your one and only chance to take that exam, and then it is you cannot retake it. Okay, and we're going to start all at the same time. So if you're late, the clock is going to start ticking when I said the class begin the exam, right? If you're late, if you're missing 15 minutes, then you don't get extra 15 minutes. Your 15 minutes is going to get lost. So be here. I hope you be here ahead of time, and bring your laptop because it's going to be on Brightspace. Okay, and bring pen because you need to draw data modeling diagram. So you definitely need a pen. You are also going to, you're going to also bring some papers, like go to library and get some like blank paper. Do that because normally I will have the department print the paper that you guys will draw that exam on, but I don't know their schedule during the summer. It's kind of random, I think, so I can't get those paper. And then faculty cannot print in library. So, hi, are you in this class? And so, pen, your laptop, and by the way, charge your laptop so that your laptop will be at least good for 2 hours. Exam is going to be about like 60 minutes-ish, I believe, maybe less. But it's going to be like, you're going to need most of the people are going to need all the time for the exam. So your laptop needs to be like not dying on, because we only have like 1, 2, and 3, 4, which I need here. Okay, but either way, you need to charge your laptop. You need to bring a pen. You should go to library today after, or like whenever you get a chance to grab at least three blank papers, A4. Okay, just in case I'm not going to be able to print it for you. Okay, so basic requirement: your laptop, pen, and paper. Now, your homework upcoming or already existed has testing your Brightspace, right? Have you guys seen that homework yet? In one of your homework, maybe you haven't seen it. Maybe it's on homework 7. Have you guys seen that? Okay. In one of your homework, the second section is for you to leave that homework and look at, currently on your quizzes, there's one that is called test. And that test is a Brightspace lockdown exam. And there's no actual question in there except for like a check mark. However, in order to access that exam, you have one chance to access that exam, but you will need to have your Brightspace lockdown software installed. Have anybody not heard of lockdown? Brightspace lockdown software, or have anybody, you never heard of it? The lockdown browser means that during the exam, you will need the software that will block all the other browsers or any other application on your laptop. So when you have the exam on, everything else is going to automatically close. Understand? And you cannot close your Brightspace. If you close your Brightspace, you left the exam. So it's to prevent you from like, I guess like go online and cheating and stuff. Basically, it will block the internet to only Brightspace. So that's called lockdown browser. But your Brightspace by default doesn't have lockdown. It's the add-on. It's the extension you need to install on your Brightspace or on your browser. So I have set up the exam testing for Brightspace lockdown in your homework 7. I do that for every semester just so that you guys can make sure your laptop is ready to go for the exam on exam days, so that you're not going to come here and you cannot access your exam. Okay? Because if you ask me, I'm going to tell you that, again, Brightspace is not perfect. And there's times when like someone would get kicked out or like someone doesn't have Brightspace or whatever, and they close your browser and it will submit whatever you have done. So we don't want that, right? If you haven't finished your homework and you only have one chance to attend. So anyways, so it will be on Brightspace. So you know Brightspace, and it will be on lockdown browser. So it's not just regular Brightspace, okay? Any questions? So what do we need that day? On Monday, July 17th, 13th. Pen, paper, your laptop, yes. Fully charged laptop, charge ahead of time, be here on time or a little bit early. I recommend 5-10 minutes earlier. And make sure that your laptop has Brightspace lockdown browser set up, ready to go. Okay, now the exam is going to be somewhere around 1 hour, somewhere around that. I think it's going to be around 1 hour, a little more maybe. And what it's going to be like is it's going to be multiple choice, and there's going to be multiple choice but matching, like pattern matching. Understand? Meaning like you have options, and then you have A, B, C, D slots, and then you're matching the right options to right slots. And then that option could be chosen twice or 3 times, multiple times. So it's not just 4 options and 4 slots, and then you're guessing the best slot. It's literally like sometimes there's 4 options, and then there's 5 slots. So each slot could have the same options, basically. Okay. So we have that, and then we have fill in the blank. The fill in the blank part is your SQL writing. Okay. Now, your SQL writing, although it's not going to be as hard as so right now your homework on HackerRank is to 2nd level. I would say that your pattern matching, your filling the blank on SQL is not going to be as hard as HackerRank, but it would be at least as hard as W3 school. Because W3 school is basic, and you just need to know the syntax right. Now, do you need to memorize every single syntax exactly the way it is to get it correct? The answer is yes or no. Yes and no. The no part is that I will tell you now, the filling the blank part is going to be like in the create query. Okay, it's going to be a create query. It's not going to be a select query. So that's eliminating a lot for you already, right? It's going to be inside a create query, but it could be anything in the create query. You need to have filling the blank and write out queries. That is this create statement, create table statement. Okay, and it will be so correct that it will run. Meaning that if you're missing semicolon or if you're missing a parentheses, and then by copy and pasting your code into SQL interpreter, if it doesn't run, then you won't get any point, 0 point. Okay, but it's in create statement. Okay, meaning that it already eliminate a bunch of stuff. Okay, but because select query obviously has a lot more syntax, right? A lot more functions, but it will be in create. Okay, and you will have obviously you will have a design portion, and then you will need to design your database into second normalized form. Okay, and the design portion, there can be one of them that will mean that that one will have a large portions of grades. There could be also two of them. That means that it will be slightly less so that you have better chance to get some points or whatever. But either of them will be similar to the exercise that we did in last week. Like, look at this app, and then we have basic functions. The most important viable MVP functions, use cases, and design a database. Remember last week, the Netflix part, right? We want to build Netflix, but not only saying that we want to build Netflix, we have a bunch of requirement, what it will do, right? Searching by the top, whatever, right? Remember language and all that? And based on those requirements, design the database for it. And the database that you're designing needs to be drawn inside a data modeling diagram or the schema design. What is the schema design? It is definitely not the one with the triangle, diamond shape and stuff, right? That's ER diagram. The one that I'm talking about is the UML data modeling. And it needs to be in second normalized form. Okay? It could be either that question or this question with the homework that you guys just did. It will be either this one that you are fixing a spreadsheet into second normalized form, or the one that building up from scratch. Understand? Two ways. The answer I'm looking for is second normalized data modeling diagram. Understand? Question? You have a question?
From the first one you said from this diagram, second one you said.
Huh?
What did you say about the second one?
Second one is the Netflix. Yeah. Okay. One of them is you're designing database for a app that you're building with requirement. The other one is you already have some very not normalized sort of data, and you want to build a database based on the data you have. It's the most two common scenarios for database design. Okay. Those are the type. Okay. Now, those are the type of questions. Now, the obviously the fill in the blank one and then the drawing one is going to be the most heavy one. Okay. Right. So, okay. So what are the topics? So it's going to really cover from day one to today, from the historical database, data storage revolution, evolutions, right? That we talk about, and why do we learn database as the software engineer or computer engineers, right? Why do we learn about database? What's the benefit of database versus file storage or whatever, evolutions of it, and what kind of database are out there, and what is the different database characteristic. Okay, and we're going to go into slightly more details. In addition to what we already learned about the relational integrity, the referential integrity, the primary keys and foreign keys, the constraints, the material on that, not only going to apply into some of your SQL, but you need to understand the logic behind that as well. The referential constraints. And today we're going to cover even deeper, and what's ever covering today and the next lecture are all going to be on exam, right? Okay, you're going to also be tested on core SQL syntaxes. Now, it's not going to be as tricky, again, as some very advanced SQL query on hackering that you have to think about it for like 20 minutes or something like that and retrying it. It's not going to be that difficult, but it's going to be more simple, but testing your clear understanding. It's going to be like simpler, but you need to be very sure, because the question that I designed, all the questions are handwritten by myself. And the questions that I designed it's almost like all of them look correct. But they're not extremely hard, but all of them might look correct, and you need to pick one. That's how I would design. So you need to be more sure about just fundamentals. You need to be clear on it, okay? And then design principles. So first normalized form, second normalized form, what are their requirements? Okay, and why do we normalize them? Okay, and what is joining has to do with normalization, efficiency wise, or whatever has to do with normalizations. Okay. Yeah, as I mentioned, multiple choice, there's matching, fill in the blank, and then drawing diagram. Obviously, there's going to be questions on unions, sets theories, and there's going to be joints and stuff too, right? Different type of joints as well. Okay. And there's going to be questions on the topic we haven't covered yet, but are going to make sure that it's covered before your exam, which is referential integrity that we're going to cover today, and aggregation that we're going to cover today, and also the next lecture, which is covering conditions. What is conditions? Let me just, yeah, like if clause, right? So we're actually going to introduce if and while. Okay, we're going to if statement and while statement. So those are conditions, and we're also, and in cases, right? Cases. And then we're also going to introduce store procedure, triggers. Okay, so store procedure and triggers are, I would say, advanced SQL writing. That's not even on hackering yet. It's not going to be on hackering, but they're like pretty advanced. Like they're pretty advanced, but they're SQL, right? But it's what it meant to do is almost like programming. It's meant to be somewhat more like programming. Okay, any question? And this is just an example of, I have this posted on the syllabus, by the way, on your exam date. So this is just an example of what I will be looking for on your drawing, your hand drawing. So there's name, there's primary keys, and the annotations of primary key is PK. Annotation of foreign keys is FK. All right. And then there's name of the columns or attributes and the type. Now the type, it says varchar, and that's good enough. You don't need to specify if it's 25 or 250. Okay. You need to really pay attention on, I would suggest that when you are reading, when you're doing fill in the blank and then when you're drawing, you need to really pay attention on the questions and the problem statement that you need to solve, because there's a lot of hint in there. And you need to use whatever is given to you. Like some parts of it, you might be able to say like, oh, you know, for example, the last week when we talk about USA or like the language part, it could be in the user, it could also be in the media, right? The language could be, the media itself could be from USA, or the person who's viewing the movie could be from USA. Sometimes there's some flexibility like that, sure. But if there is hints that's given from your problem statement, you need to use that. If you miss it, you won't get a correct answer. Like there's some flexibility, but really not that much. Do you understand? Okay, any questions on the exam? Okay, and then on the date of exam, you're gonna get your grades. Okay, we're gonna, when you finish, you can't leave because we're going to make sure everybody get their grade. After everybody submit and finish, we're going to like peer grading the diagrams. So you immediately get the grade. And that day, I'm going to also post it, your Dropbox for if you decided to do extra credit based on it, right? And the extra credit is gonna, the ones that I recommended are already approved by me, right? Those are Carissa ones. And there's a specific steps for City College to get Carissa and Carissa certificate for free. Like, you can sign up for Carissa for free on free trial, but you won't be able to get past the certificate site, like the pay gate. So there's I think it's called CUNY Upskill or something like that. And then there's a specific link that you need to request like free license key. And then they will get back to you in like 2-3 days. Something like that. Okay. Otherwise you can get it through trial, but then you won't really get to the certificate page. So why not get yourself your like free certificate, right? I mean, if you decided to do the extra credit and then you also have a free certificate, you can like post it on LinkedIn or whatever. Okay, any questions on just these administrative stuff first? Any question? Comments? For your own benefit? Feedback? Okay, for those who just came in, I mentioned that as we see that there's glitch last Thursday for homework 5, because apparently on Sunday, I see no one submitted, meaning like Brightspace literally dropped all of your content, your homework submission on homework 6. So on my end, I see no one, right? So that means that it could happen in the future again. And then this time they dropped everybody. So I gave everybody extension to resubmit. But if that happened again, if it was only for certain people, then you need to, prove that you did submit. So I would recommend that going forward, all the homework submission, take a screenshot when you submit. For your own case, going forward, okay? Because we don't have guarantee that Brightspace doesn't lose it again. Right, yeah.
Take a screenshot of like the actual answers or the submission.
Like submission is good enough. At least the submission. I mean, the answer it'll be difficult for you, right? I mean, like,
It still shows the submission, like you can see the first submission, it says it.
yeah, I mean, those are good, but the thing is that you don't need to do that really, because I'm letting you guys to submit the first time anyways. I mean, the second time for this time, because everybody's was lost from my end. So that's fine, but like in case the next time, you just need to make sure that you have something that you can use as evidence. If I provided grades and you're telling me that, oh, this I submitted and I have proof, then you'll get your grade back, right? But Brightspace can lose it, at least from my view, at any time. So I don't know what your view that you see your homework 5 is, but from my view is that no one in this class has submitted homework 5 on Sunday, which is odd to me. Okay,
I can see it shows like, I had a submission from our lunch.
that's what I'm saying. Huh?
How should we resubmit it?
You guys already did, didn't you? Because I extended to today.
It's not letting us submit anything.
It was still yesterday night.
Huh?
It was still yesterday night, 12 AM this morning.
So
Yeah.
the deadline was for last night,
Yeah,
but we didn't know about the issue until now, ever so late.
no, I said it on Slack.
Well, you said that you would give an extension, but most of us assumed that it didn't apply to us because we did submit it. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, it looks like by today, this morning when I checked, it looks like everybody submitted.
Oh, because it still shows my submission from before the original deadline.
Well, I mean, it shows that now, only today, it shows that everybody submitted, so it might have restored or whatever. Some of you might have resubmitted or maybe it just came back. But on Sunday, it was like no one's name. Huh?
Maybe it's just been not for their song.
Well, yeah, I mean, that could be also it. Could be more, maybe they're just doing some maintenance job or whatever, right? But anyways, I just think that, for you guys, your own sake, probably good to keep your own evidence, right? For your own, if it was something that give you like a receipt or whatever, like, that you submit and then there's an email saying that, oh, thank you for your submission. Then, hey, those are great too, but since there isn't, just do it for your own self.
Even less than, saying like, submit.
Send you an email confirmation. I mean, if it does, then just those will work. If you ever, when I post the grade at some point of your current spending, and if you have something that you want to contend, then use those as proof. Okay, I don't know from what you guys get. You understand what I'm saying? Okay, anyways, we have so much to cover and we have to go. So, all right, so we're going to do this homework exercise together. So everybody stand up and pick, everybody stand up to this side, all lined up on this side, stand up and lined up. And grab 3 chalk from the back. Everybody stand in red in order and go on to a line here. All right, I want everybody, this is on your homework, so you're supposed to already did this. All right, so everybody line over there. And grab the first 3 people on the line, grab a chalk. Okay. So what we're going to do is that we're going to solve this problem together and using these 2, actually using that blackboard over there, okay? We're gonna use that. And then when you got the right answer, like the first to go will put some, right? And eventually we'll get the final product. If you get some, if you contribute correctly, you can sit down. Okay? All right, so the first question, look at this. You guys seen this before because this was on your homework, so you're just redoing it and I'm just giving you guys the correct answer. First of all, the first person, write two reason. Two reason. This is not in the second normalized form. Two reason why this is not second normalized. And put it on the blackboard. And you can give two more reasons.
I can see from here.
What? Say that again?
You can see.
I see it from
Okay, hold on. You can come, you can walk closer, you don't have to stand it. What is it? Can you write it more specifically? Duplicate what? Come on, this was on homework. Did you guys do it?
Yeah, but for the user followers, the L520 and the L520 on that one, it's like a double sim.
Write it on there. I want, it's kind of like a quiz. You have to write it down the right answer to sit down. If you don't, you just have to stand up the whole day. You can't duplicate each other. You have to have unique answer, okay? Two reason. The question is why it's not in second normalized form. Okay, are you done? What's your answer?
It's in the user flows, there's like 3, 7, 8, 9 on the second one,
Mm-hmm.
and then it is repeated again on the P120, that's the fourth line.
Mm-hmm.
And for the third line, I'll see with the L520 and the fourth line, that's the J6.
I don't. What? Sorry, what?
It is repeated 2 times.
Where? User followers?
Yeah.
That's not. There's something wrong with there, but it's not the reason. What's the other indication it's not second normalized form?
Sorry.
What's the other reason that it's not? Do you have, okay, if you don't, you have to stand over here and then, do you have answers?
I think it's
Huh? What was that say? What was your answer? It's inaccurate, you said? Okay, stand in the back. All right, two of you try. You have to have different answers. You can erase it. Come on, this is in the homework. Isn't this in your homework? Okay. All right, you have to. hurry, because there's only 4 answers. So if it's taken by him, okay, do you have the answer? What's your name? John Carlos, right? What's your answer?
Multiple values, one cell.
Which cell?
The first one, we can say, for example. like
Which column? Just tell me which column.
The fourth column.
The 4th column. Multiple value?
The last column,
User followers? The name of the column is what?
user follower.
Okay, yes, you got that right. Okay, and what?
2 columns the same type, so last,
Same domain, yeah, the same type. Type, it doesn't matter.
it's like signal.
Duplicate columns.
So this
Which ones? Which columns?
5 and 6.
Name, just tell me the name of the column.
Last check in location.
Correct. Okay, you can sit down. All right, what's yours? You have to find the other 2, or you have to stay in the back. 2 more.
Everyone must have.
You can sit down. You can give the pen to another person though. Yeah, what is your answer? No, you're good now. You can sit. Yeah, wait, don't. Wait. Do you have the answers?
So why is not 2 enough?
Yes,
And not being 1 enough, be 1.
correct. Good thinking. What's the other one? One more. Let me see if there's actually one more. Let me double check. Actually, that's it. That's fine. You can sit down. There's only 3. Okay, did you, wait, you have the next question I haven't given yet. So did you guys get the answers? So first of all, the 1NF, why it's not in 2NF? So he got one, that's correct. It's because it's not in 1NF. So it's definitely not in section 2NF, right? So that's one reason. The other 2 reasons, John Carlos showed written now. So user follower is having a data structure in there. So that has multiple value and trying to store an array. That is the violation of first normal form. Okay. And he also picked the other 2 columns that are trying to store the same domain, same data. So they're basically duplicate columns, except for they're tricky and right location 2 and location. So those are trying to store the same thing. Also meaning that they're trying to take multiple values. So those are the 3 reasons that it's not in second normalized form. Anybody else see a different ones that I missed?
the user followers doesn't really depend on that primary key. Does that count as like not 1NF?
Can you repeat that?
Like the user followers column doesn't really rely on the primary key user ID.
No.
Everything is one goes up from the 2NF, we need to have like.
Oh, you're talking about the partial dependency.
It has to depend on the primary key.
Yes. It's that is fine. That is true too. Yes, it's not. Yeah, but that's more so that's still falls back to it's not even one normalized forms yet. But that's correct though. If that was in the multiple choice, choosing that would be still fine. But I want next question now. Can you help me raise it? Okay, so the next question. Draw 3 tables. All right, we need to hurry up. The 2 of you each draw 3 tables. You cannot repeat them. Actually, you know what? Wait. Are you Pedro?
Yeah.
Okay, you go first. 3 tables.
3 tables like
It has to be in second normalized form. What will be at least 3 tables in there? We'll make sure you let other people have space for later. No, you don't have to fill out the name. Just table. Just table with the table name.
I don't know how to.
Okay, go to the back, go to the back.
I don't know how to name it.
What do you mean?
Like for the first table, like it's gonna be user ID, username, and then
What, oh, so what? So name a table, just name.
Social media account type name.
Just put a name. Just put a name down. I'll tell you if it's right or not. Okay. Social media account type. Okay. Did you do this homework? Did you guys do this homework?
It's we have just looked at it.
But isn't it due tonight?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Go.
Sorry.
Two more.
Profit URL, social media.
Okay. Send it back. Come on. Pedro, go. Three. You can erase it or you can put three more. Come on, let's do this. We will continue until we finish this assignment. That's fine. Just the table and like high level table and name. Okay. A third one. Okay, sit down. Go. You go, three more tables. Sit down. There's one more. There could be one more, so think, I'll give you more time to think. Okay, sit down. Jonah, can you add another one? If I have to add another one. I'll give you guys a hint. I might not need account type, but the other one is, in my opinion, is maybe even more important. It's close to account type.
Location, right?
No.
Oh, I can't think of one.
It's fine, it's fine. This one is account. Write an account. Account.
Oh, okay.
And your question is, no, actually, write it on this side. 'Cause- Okay, now. Okay, so Jonah, so your actual task is to write out the necessary only primary keys. Yeah, all of them.
All of them?
Yeah.
Oh, the primary key.
Yes, just the primary key. And put a line underneath it. Okay,
This would have like a,
no, it doesn't have to yet.
Yeah.
That's fine. What else?
I mean, I feel check-in also would have.
It probably doesn't. Yeah, that's fine.
I mean, is username based on like the handle or?
No, account has a handle, so. User ID.
Oh, okay.
Okay, sit down. After user ID, you can sit down. Okay, draw the relationships. You don't have to put cardinality yet, just relationship. Connect them. I'll give you just connect 3 tables. Account type, okay. User account, okay. Yes, maybe. Yep. Is that? Well, you already did 1, 2, 3. Actually, that's wrong. Can you erase that? You can go and fill out the. Three lines. Correct? Correct? One more. Okay, it's a tricky one. Draw another line, the same place, draw another line. Yeah,
So,
following. Following.
oh, because.
Sit down. Okay, you can draw 2 cardinality on both sides, okay? 2. Wait, let me see. Wait, what is? Well, what is that? Is that one-to-one? What did you draw user and check-in?
Many to one,
Where is one? Where is many?
just one, just many.
User? Okay, go to the back. And can you explain your account and account type? Can you also explain to me why? And what is it? Is it one-to-many or one-to-one? It's up to this part is actually flexible because it's actually up to interpretations. What is your reasoning? One-to-one? That's fine. That's fine. Did you draw one-to-one? Can you draw the line a little more secure? Yeah. Okay. Can you erase the checking part? Okay, go to the back. Okay, go draw. You can go draw two more if you want. Location. You give it a what?
So.
Okay, is it what? Check-in is what? Many, and then the other side is location. Location is what? One. Okay, one to many. Why? Actually, you know what? Let draw the other one, then and explain together. Actually, it will be more. Okay. All right. Okay. Can you explain your thinking? Yes, I mean it's right thinking, but you're in this situation, you're drawing one half of a whole problem. So it's really hard for you to, it will be hard for you to explain just that because that's following table is a relationship, right? But wait a minute. What about the other one?
This one?
Yeah.
It's to one person in one person they could be equal to
Okay, so I'm going to give you another opportunity. Instead of user and following, okay? User, you see user and check-in, there is a line, right? Can you finish that line? Cardinality on this line? Okay, so now you have user and following, right? And then the location and following, and user and check-in, right? And location and check-in. Can you explain this together?
So one user.
Mhm.
Is the representation like maybe people's.
Say that again?
So like one people can make unique interactive in like the same person. Sorry. So one user in one person they like make two things.
No. No. You can sit down. Can you explain? Can you explain? Yeah, why the user check-in and why the one on user, one on your cardinality is correct, but you explain.
One user can have maybe can like with our seconds. I mean they can check in by different types of name. Like they can have.
Okay, and then location and check-in.
Like people can be anywhere, like at one time they can be office or somewhere, some other place, but they still can check in.
Okay. How about draw the other two cardinality? Two more. Anybody who wants, do you guys, any of you want to volunteer that maybe you can Do you have better way to explain the user check-in part? Can you better explain? User and an account is one too many?
The user ID, a person can, one user ID can be checking in different locations.
Uh-huh,
So it's gonna be one to many,
uh-huh.
and then for the location, you're also correct. So in one location, a person can check in many times. Like.
A location.
Even single room that we can check in many times. So it's one to many.
You're saying the same thing. Can you, I think you're saying it in reverse. You're going the right direction, but I think you're saying the same logic twice. Can you say it again? Okay, repeat it again.
For the location.
User and location and check-in, the relationship.
Yeah, so a person can be in one location, but he can check in many times. So it's gonna be one to many.
A person can check into a location many times. Okay. Actually, that's not one, that's not actually accurate. You're close, but that's not the actual relationship here. It is true, that's correct, that can be possible, but. Okay, I'm gonna do this one so that you guys are not gonna get, do you wanna try?
So I think that a check-in can only be tied to one location. But,
No.
different check-ins.
No.
can happen.
Anybody wanna try? Okay. Checking is there for the reason of many-to-many relationship between user and location. So when you're doing your cardinality and when you're doing explanations between these three tables, check-in is just a weak entity. You need to explain it using user and location. A user can check into many locations and a location can be checked in by many users. Get it? So that the cardinality there will make sense because the user and location is parent, so it's always one. The check-in part is always many. If you don't use these three to tie together, your explanation will be like a user can have many check-in. That doesn't make any, like, you know, it doesn't explain and then a check-in can have many locations. That doesn't really make sense. It doesn't really fly, like it's not smooth enough. When you have many-to-many relationship and using a weak entity, you need to use the original two to do the explanation. Does that make sense? Because user and location is many-to-many relationship. One user can check into many places. One place can check in by many users. Get it? You have a check-in in middle as a weak entity. Okay? Now finish two more. Did you do two more? Okay, what was the two? Okay, what did you do?
One to many.
One to one. He did one to one. That's fine. So what's the other one that you did? Okay, one user had many. Okay, so you have to go to the back. It's wrong. So database class, are you in? What?
This third one is.
No.
No. That's incorrect. Can you erase that? Do you want to do two more? The user to account and then user to account type.
So yes, we can do the redo this.
I mean, it's up to you. There's still plenty. Okay, go to the back. Go to the back. Do you want to do? Do you have any more answers that you can implement? Okay. All right. So do you have any more answers other than that? That can, but do you have any, do you want to try other ones in order to sit down? I'll explain next, but I will be revealing answers. Anybody want to try the rest? There's a user and following still not complete yet.
It's the one to many,
Do you want to try it?
where the user can.
Yeah. Do you want to try it?
But the user and following is gonna be many to many, right? So user can be.
Fill it out. Let me see. No. Do you want to try it? Do you guys see the answer? Anybody else see the answer? Before I'm gonna reveal. Okay, okay, and we're missing one more. I mean, on that end, we're missing one more. There's two lines. There was two lines there originally. You filled out one line correctly. What about the other line? No. Okay. All right. Can you guys all stand here? All right. So let's look at the answers, okay? Now, the caveat, this is one of the answer, okay? So, oh God, why can't I? Oh. Does anybody know what's going on here? Like, what is happening? Okay. Okay, so what do we miss here? Well, first of all, just so you know, on your exam, you will need to write out not only the primary keys for the home, for this, right now, for the exercise, we're just skipping for the most important ones, right? But you do need to write out what's already on the table. So the rest of non-primary keys, you need to write out the attributes, right? So that's number one. And then also, we didn't do anything as far as the data type. So caveat, those two things we missed, we didn't fill it in your exam. You do need to fill it out, okay? Now, what we are missing here is user following another user. What relationship would that be?
When the user have a value of law, like have a mute law.
So a user can only have one following? So let's, no, actually. User and another user. What relationship is it? We have yes.
One user can follow many users and a user can be followed by many users.
Yes. So what relationship is between users?
Management.
Yes. It's just a tricky self-directed, self-binded relationship, right? Because user is following another user, but user and user, they're the same type. That's why there's two lines. One line go in, the other one goes out, because one is followee and one is follower, right? Yes? So if there are many to many relationships to begin with, following is the what? Table. It's a weak entity, it's a junction table. So what is the relationship between normal table and a weak entity table? One to many. So it's always going to be two one to many. Understand? Because the followee can have many followers. A follower can follow many people. Right? So that means you see the answer here, the following, the user part and then the following. There's two cardinality, but both of them are one to many over here. See that? This is the first that we didn't do, finish. The second one, many to many, is the check-in part with the location, user check-in and location, right? Okay, user check-in location, we got it correct, but that's another many to many. Now, the third part where I mentioned is slightly flexible for you guys to think and digest is that now the user and an account type. Number one thing is, first of all, is if your user has an account and an account has an account type, then you don't need a user to account type. Why do you need a user to account type? If you have a user to account, forget about relationship like one to many or one to one. I'm simply saying, if you have a user that has an account, that means that the account will have what? A foreign key from user, right? Then if you have an account table that has an account type relationship, that means the account type or account somewhere is going to have a foreign keys too, right? So why would you need another direct relationship between user to account type? You don't. So user and account type don't need another relationship because the user needs to have a relationship with the account. An account needs to have a relationship to account type, right? Just by that, without even cardinality yet, just by that, you don't need a line between user and account type. Okay? Now, as far as the cardinality wise to go, I don't know why I cannot scroll down. Like, honestly, this is weird. I don't know how to continue. But, hold on. Try this. Okay. Now, here's the caveat. My answer here is assuming user only have one account. Right? My assumption is user have only one account. So it's flexible because user can possibly, depends on your design. And in this case, the question did not specify. So this part is actually a tricky part where it's flexible, like it could be multiple answers here, meaning that the user, you as a developer, database designer and developer of the software, you can decide a user, can they have multiple accounts? Maybe it's a personal and a business account, so they can have multiple accounts, right? So that answer is kind of blurry and then multiple options, right? But given that, I want you guys to think, in this case, user only have one account. So that user is whether it's user following another user or account following another account. It doesn't make that much difference, right? Because it's one to one. Now, let me finish. Let me ask you, what do you guys think if today one user had multiple accounts? What would change? What dynamic would possibly be changed accordingly? The following would change and if the user account, if user to account is one to many instead of one to one, right now it's one to one. If I were to choose initially by design, I designed it so that user can have multiple accounts. Then in that case, can you tell me what consequently would have to change?
Or do you want to move the check-in?
Check-in also might have to change, right? It might. Right? Because then you are using an account as the actual actor instead of the user, because the user is just holding on different account. And the actual account, it really depends on if you're a designer of the app, what makes sense. But in this case, if it's one-to-many, right, relationship between user and account, meaning like I can have multiple account, then it will make more sense that the check-in person, like the user itself is actually a virtual entity. You understand what I'm saying? The account is the actual entity that do the check-in. You understand what I'm saying? So that the check-in and the following might actually have to be switched over to the account if it's one-to-many. Okay? Does that make sense? Yes.
So I kind of assumed that the user had like, that it was once one that it could just be in one table, the account handle, account type, stuff like that.
Like you're inside a user, you mean?
Yeah, like, I didn't realize that there was a distinction. Is that like?
It doesn't, well, it really, well, in this case, because if your account and account type, you by design that you want everything to be just only one, like one user have only one, and then blah blah. Like, let's say if you're the developer, you can have it that design, and if it's all in one table, possibly, like it really have to see like once it's drawn now, and let's see if there for the second normalized form, if there is any partial dependency, right? After checking that. But potentially that works, yeah. If you're by default, you're thinking it's one to one everything, right? But if any case you have a one-to-many situation that you by design you want to, then it spawned a lot of these partial dependency possibility for second normalized form. So understand? All right, you guys can sit down. But did you guys follow? Okay. All right, so now let's go to finally our lecture. Okay, so aggregation. So if you guys read the chapter, so we have some aggregations, as last time we mentioned in class, that once you design a table, or when you're designing a table, some values can be derived after your database storing the data. So you don't need to actually, if it's derived values such as aggregations, like if you're adding multiple rows or doing some type of multiplications of data, you can get the value. You don't actually need to store that value, right? You're trying to store a value where you cannot derive from original value only, right? Last week, remember we saying that? So what are some of the aggregation functions? Okay, so when we talk about aggregations, what do we really mean? So think about it this way, right? You have a table. Okay, let's say a market, let's say they're selling fruits. They sell a bunch of apples, they sell a bunch of oranges, and they sell a lot of, let's say, peach, for example, right? Now, you have a table in your database called order. Okay, in this order table, it says fruit type. One of the columns is fruit type. So you'll say either orange, apple, or peach, right? And then buyer ID, which is a foreign key to the user or whatever, okay? Quantity, okay? Quantity of, in that order, how many a buyer buy, right? Now, let me ask you, do you think the price will be in that table for the order? As far as price-wise, I meant by original price of the items.
In the order table?
Yes. It won't be in order table, right? right? Because it would probably be in the item table, fruit table of individual price, right? Because you can get that using your fruit ID or the name of the fruit. And then in that original fruit table, it should the price of the original item, it should store there. Now, in the order table, each line, the user buy 5 apples, that's it. Like in one row, there's a user called Sheng. He bought 5 and then apples. Do we need to store that quantity 5? Do we need to store that in the order table? Not you. Anybody here?
Yes,
Yes, why?
because you want to know how much they,
Yeah,
they order.
it's actually relevant to order. There's nowhere else that's it's supposed to store the quantity that this person buy in this order. Now, let me ask you, should we store subtotal on this row? 5 apples, right? And then supposedly we get the price of each apple is $4 from the the fruit table. In this order table, should we have a column called subtotal? Why? Why not? Yeah. If you want to get you can select fruit, select price times quantity, right? Then you get the price. So the subtotal, you get a subtotal. So subtotal itself is derived, right? So you don't need to store that. So so this is one example. You don't need to store. Understand? That's one. Secondly, today, instead of like calculating this price, I want to see out of my order table how many apples, how many of each fruit were sold from this month, for example. So basically across multiple rows of this month, that transaction happened this month. I want to see how many apples were sold, how many orange were sold, and how many peach were sold. How do we do that? Anybody read? Wait, no. Anybody? Did anybody read up on aggregation? Okay. I'll take one step back. If I just want to count in 1 month, how many items were sold in my entire shop? What would I do? I will use count, which is the aggregation. So there's 4 high-level aggregation functions. Count, it's counting occurrences. So it's counting occurrences. Okay? Sum is actually adding the specific column, the value in there, looking to the values. Let's say if I'm selling 5 apples on Monday and selling 2 apples on Tuesday, then using sum on the quantity, I will actually do 5 plus 2. If I do count, it's just going to be 2 because they show up twice only. Understand? All right, so we're going to be here until 8 o'clock. Can we get the clock? You guys need to really read the chapter so that when we're here, it's easier for you guys to understand when we go. if I do a count total on the quantity. Okay, if I say select. Okay, this is two code, okay, let's say if I count. Quantity. It's going to count. This row, how many rows there are? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what count does. Occurrence. So it returns 4 in this example. If I want to do sum, select sum of this row, it will do 1 plus 2 plus 4 plus 3. Okay, so it's what? 10? 10. It will be 10. Got it? The difference between sum and count. Now, if I want to do an average, it will be the QT here. It will be the 1, 2, 3, 4 divided by 4. Okay? Now, if I do max on QT, it will just return this. It will return 4. Okay? So the 4 type of aggregation function. First of all, okay? Now, um, now, specifically drawing out the count star, okay? When you do count star, it counts the actual is this example here, because everything is non-null, there's no null value, right? So when I do count quantity, because in quantity, there's no null here, right? There's no empty value, there's no null. So it would be, the result is 4, the same as count star. But in cases when there are columns that has no value, it's the count is going to skip that null value. Okay, so when you do count star with some column having no value, it might return a little differently. When you do count star, it's actually going to count actual total rows within this table. Or within whichever where class you define, like the durations, the range. Okay, there's a little difference because when you do count on column, it's going to skip no value. It doesn't skip duplicates, but it will skip no value. Understand? So this one is to be pointed out specifically just to know that there's a difference when you're doing this. In this case, everything is not null, right? So the answer will be the same as count star to counting how many rows there are. Okay, now everything else as explained. So we're going to jump. Now the next is group by. After we learn about these 4 aggregation, we need to learn about group by. What is a group by? Group by is used if you want to specifically silo or dividing certain groups together and do the aggregation within that group. For example, today, I want to count, instead of counting in total how many cells I make, in this case, it's 4 cells. In total, I want to count how many cells that I make for each of the fruits, So you will need to group by the fruits, right? What about if I want to get how many cells that I make each day Then what do I need to group by? It will be group by date. Right? Okay, that means that when I do that with the group by, it means that if I choose the specific column that I want to do in order to calculate within it using aggregation, right? Then the same type with or the same value of that group is going to be combined and then doing the calculation. Okay, that's what the group by is for. So for example, here, if we say if we want to today get let's say if they actually no. If we want to get total cell of each fruit, total cell of each fruit, what do we do? Say this is the order table, okay? We don't really have any where right now. At least we want everything, so we don't have any where for now, which is fine. We do a group by. Fruit name, fruit, right? So the only place that distinguish the name of the fruit is in the name part, right? So we'll be grouping by name. Okay? Now, if we group by name, basically now it's going to say apple and apple together. And then look at it as one thing. And then it depends on what aggregation you're trying to use. Next, right? So I said total cell. So which total cell of each fruit. So which aggregation function should I use? Sum. Sum. Okay. Sum of what? Quantity of soul. That's soul, right? Now. So up to this part, as far as logic wise, is correct. But what we're trying to get is in the end, right? What we're trying to get is apple 7, orange 2, peach. This is what we want to get, right? The results. Right? So right now whatever we're writing out is really just 7 to 1, right? As far as select signals, right? Because that doesn't really help us because we don't see the actual context of it. Right? So we're missing the name, obviously. Right? So this is the result. Now you can also, what is asked? What does asked do? Yeah, it's alias. Okay, so in this case, you'll use it. Okay. All right, so we use group by when we want to divide, when we want to make divisions, and within that division, we do calculation. If the group by wasn't there, it just if the group by wasn't there, and then we just do the sum, right? It would just be 7 to 1, and it would be all the ones that added together. But if we took group by name, then it's dividing groups using a name. Now, one of the caveat is for SQL interpreters, runtime. My God. The SQL interpreter runtime is that no matter how or what the result is, okay? We mentioned that if we don't have this name thing, we're not really going to get any context of in total quantity because we don't know what is what, right? And then on the other hand, it just so happened that SQL interpreters, whatever that is in group by, whatever you're using group by, because you can actually do name and then plus that you can do time or date. You can make multiple, you can make even more finer grain of groupings, more detail. For example, in here, you can even do another one with dates. Okay, and then even more maybe users by who, right? We can do all that. So group by can follow by multiple different type of columns. But the rule of SQL interpreter is that whichever columns you put in the line of group by columns, whichever column, you will need to balance it in select. If there's one, you must not put one, except when the other one is the aggregation. The aggregation itself doesn't count. But when you have group by followed by whichever column, it needs to match exactly. So if you have name here, it needs to have name here. If you then have a date here, it needs to have a date. It needs to completely 100% balance, except for the aggregation functions, because aggregation itself is adding on. It's not part of the grouping. It's doing the calculations that you want to do. It's trying to derive the value. But other than that, everything in group by, and this is for example, whatever, like in real life, is that you always need to double check in your group by, does the number of column matches the non-aggregation columns in your select lines. They need to be exact match. Or your SQL is just going to fail. It's just going to fail. Now, when we do a where, okay, when we do a where, what we are doing here is doing a condition on each of the row, right? For example, if I say where date larger, this is pseudocode, then, okay? Date. Okay, then this one is not going to show up, right? Because if you put where here, it's going to already eliminate those rows first before you're grouping it. Understand? If you have a where clause before you group by, it's going to already go into those rows and eliminate those rows already. So your group by is not going to catch those. For example, in here, if I want to take to be larger or equal to July 2nd, you know, so it only start these three only. The result then would not have each. Okay, now, however, what if you want to do something that's after the group by, after the derived value implication? Meaning that, what if I want to only show total sold is more than 2? Total sold is more than 2. Can you do where clause? You can't, right? Because Your where clause, yes, this is what we want only because orange only stole once. But these two, even though they're all both more than two, but I just want to check the total. It shouldn't return two rows. So checking each row is wrong. Let me rephrase what I said. I want the result to return to me only the one that had been sold last week more than two quantity. Actually, you know what? Easier. More than 5 quantity. Help you understand better. I only want to see the name, the quantity of the item that was sold last week that has sold more than 5 in total. In order to do calculations on the aggregated value, we use halving after group by. Halving total quantity right there larger than, what did I say, 5. Understand? Where clause do individual filtering condition. The where. Eliminate, for example, we go and eliminate the dates. Check on the dates, eliminate the one that doesn't match already before you even do. Having also do condition, but it does it after grouping. Okay? All right. Okay, all these examples you guys can continue to read on and on the textbook as well as lecture notes. I'm just gonna jump to cover all the topic. Okay. This goes back again, reiterate. Okay. This is the order when your SQL runs your query and then the order of execution. So the where comes before group by, right? Which means that it will get filtered out. So to apply in real life, if you have a large data set, right? If you know for a fact that it's a millions of rows, your table has millions of rows, and you have multiple joins, right? It's going to take the database some time to run it. And if you don't want to freeze or time out, sometimes you do want to think about how to you make your data set smaller when it's calculating. You're selecting already a reduced amount of data sets, right? Then that means that look at this order. So let's say if you have some select query that go all the way to having or go all the way to order, right? If it has to go all the way to having an order, that means that if you have something in your where clause that you can eliminate, that means that it doesn't even need to calculate this far. I mean, it doesn't need to calculate as many rows when it comes down to 5 and 6. Does that understand? Do you guys understand what I'm saying? For example, this example, right? I have a where clause here that already to me, like, it makes sense because I only want something from July 2nd and on, right? So that means that I'm already before the group by until and then having, which is after group by, I already take out all the rows that is smaller than July 2nd. Before I even do the grouping and having, right? That means that when by the time I do grouping, group by and having, or the sum, I already have smaller amount of rows I need to calculate. And that's slightly speed up your SQL faster. Understand what I'm saying? Because the less that they're trying to calculate and combine, the faster it is, obviously. So this is why the order of it is important. a lot of time when you're doing some calculations and then when you're in a company and you're really doing data science work, data analytics works, and you've seen that, oh, there's a lot of slowness and blah, blah. Yes, index does help. But your query sometimes like this little things also help. Because if you didn't have these where clause and then you get the result in the end, after all these run, then you start reducing, oh, I don't need this anything before July 2nd. Then you're wasting time after you are already running it. You could have eliminated what you don't need first before you're doing the group by and aggregation. Understand? Okay. All right. So the other three things, as far as doing calculation, that is important since we're now talking about aggregation in large sets, is we know distinct, meaning that we're taking out all the duplicates first. We don't want to, if we just want to see unique value, we take out duplicates first. So that reduces the rows, right? We know it's distinct. Top, what is top? Meaning that if I say select top 1,000, that means that I just want to do the first 1,000 row. I just want to look and do calculation within that first 1,000. Then you ask me, then what about the rest 9,000 or the rest in the table? Well, you will use something like a loop. So you're calculating small sets, small sets, small sets, right? Rather than getting a huge table, huge join. Understand? So top is normally used for that purposes, or you just want to see only first five values, right? But top also have the advantage if you want to use smaller sets and use a loop to do calculation. Limit also is the same thing. So limit also for some database, rather than top, they use limit. It's the same thing, meaning like I just want to get the limited amount of rows each time. What is offset? Meaning that you can specifically say, I want to start from first 100 row to the first 200. So that 100 row is starting from 101 to 200. That's what offset is used. So this is when we're talking about larger data sets now, because we're doing more specific aggregation calculation. So think about this as a good data developer or whatever, when you need to query SQL, when it's real life productions, these are some of the things that you would use, not necessarily now because your data set is small, but when the data set is huge, select amount or clean up your amount of rows before you do the heavy calculations, right? Okay. No value, we know that is compared by is null or is not null, right? We talked about this like 3 lectures ago. We talked about in before too, right? When we talk about wildcards. Remember that? Okay. These are some of the larger, smaller than whatever that we talk about here, since we're aggregations. We also know about this mod or divide, multiply, right? Minus, plus. Since we're talking about derived values, these are some of the built-in calculations that we know of. Remember, we talked about the dates one, how many formats they are, and we end up using the timestamp or the epoch time. I think it's on the next slide. Yeah, the Unix time or like the epoch time that I mentioned start from 1970. Remember this? We talked about a while ago, I guess. Okay, now we're going to go to the next. So we cover this lecture, number 5, have everything about the aggregations, aggregation functions, and some important operators that we covered before or haven't covered before, but it's all summarized in there. We need to cover lecture 6 today. So let's see where we are. Okay, I think lecture 6 is just some more string function, which you should have already done some of it because you did have the W3C school. So they have already covered most of them. So we're just gonna skip it really quick. And then these are two places for most of the SQL, for the string function that you can check out. The Microsoft itself, sometimes it has like some advances that they built on their own, some string functions, so you can check it out. But most of the more standard ones are always in WSB tool. So the whole 60 exercise you're eventually going to do is going to cover most, if not all of them. This is the regular expression, Regent, that I mentioned about before. Nothing you need to memorize, but just so that you know that it looks like this when you are like trying to compare gracefully in one outliner where you normally have to do like multiple and or, right? But in this case, it's using this like regular expression for you to kind of like matching it. Concat is concatenation. So do you know what that means? Okay, you have multiple partial strings or partial text or characters that you want to combine it into one single value as a string text as a result. You use concat, okay? Subquery using in or within. Subquery could be in from, in where, even in select. Okay, it's like nested query basically. Cast and convert. The cast and convert. So cast is not used for uppercase and lowercase, because uppercase and lowercase has its own function within SQL, which is upper and lower, right? Cast and convert are normally used for convert is normally used for changing different type of data type. And cast is normally used to change within numbers, but different decimals, or float, or long, or whatever. Substring shouldn't be foreign to you guys, right? You have one big text or string, and you want certain parts of it, rather than concatenate, combining string, substring is only one partial, right? You can use from index number 0 to the end or whatever positions. Okay, this is why I talk about the case, upper and lower. When you're trying to make all of your varchar result uppercase and or lowercase, right? Use upper or lower. And these are all the other variants of string functions, okay? All right. Now, when we talk about schema, and I think this course, specifically for you guys, you did it in the recording. So when we talk about schema, right? We normally think about tables. But I should have said in the recording that actually in SQL, by definition, schema is not just table. The table that we're always thinking about and talk about is the permanent table, which is the basic understanding of schema that we have. That table stores data, and it lives in your database until you drop it or until you delete it, right? It's persistent, it's permanent, right? There's two other types of schema that doesn't live permanently. They're still same rows and columns, but they don't live permanently, or they don't store any data. Okay, the first one is view. Okay, what is view? The view is basically, think about it as a temporary virtual storage virtual storage where you store the procedure to get this storage. You store the procedure to get this storage without actually having this story permanently storing any data in it. And you give this storage also known as the view, a name. So in the future, you just call this view's name. And then that storage will get returned, okay? Now, exactly how it works is you will have a select query, for example. Think about a select query, right? When you run a select query, when it returns to you in a temporary, in a table format, right? It has columns and rows. But when you shut down the SQL, it disappears, right? Remember we talked about it's read only. But these select query, if you just have one join, two join, it's easy, you can write it. But what if you have 10 joins? You want somewhere to store it, right? Like you want somewhere to store this code. You want to save this code so you don't have to type this code all the time. So you give it a proper name, basically, and you give it this name as a view, right? So basically in your database, it will store this select query with a bunch of joins or whatever as a view. So when next time you're executing select this view, it's basically return that select query that's so complicated that you store in there. Basically, that's what view is meant for. You get what I'm saying? But does the view itself hold any data? It doesn't. It's simply just like a requery, but you're storing the programming, the code of it. So you don't have to type it again. What are the benefits? Number one, obviously, you don't have to rewrite every time that select query. That's one benefit. The other benefit is that when you have a view like this, database, modern database, any database these days, unless these days the database has a intelligent way to cache your data. I don't want to go too much detail, but the caching means that whatever operation that you run previously is stored a little record in there. So that next time, as long as your database didn't have any change, just drastic change, it doesn't have any insert, it doesn't have any drop or delete that much, your database actually will smartly go to the cache first and retrieve those data. So you will get the answer faster from the view. Does that make sense? Also, the third benefit is that sometimes you have your developer or your database administrators, you have more privileges to read or modify a database. If you create a view, it's basically a table that is built and saved using the code, but it doesn't have any data in there. You can let other people, like your colleagues, data scientists or data analysts, use these views instead for their analysis so that nothing will be changed permanently. They can't, because you cannot really modify data if you're only given a view. Understand? But with the view, you can do select from this view anything you would do as a table. You just cannot delete, modify this view. Okay? Understood? So those are the three instances. The other schema is called temporary table. Now, what is a temporary table? A temporary table are used in two scenarios. One scenario is previously we talked about in the last slide, when you have subqueries. Within a select statement, you have another select statement. Remember, you see like a nested query in the select clause or where clause. That's when a temporary table shows up. In the back end, there's this temporary table. It just disappears after you run this select query, right? Second time when you use select query is when you have store procedure. Later on, you'll learn what a store procedure is. You may want to temporarily hold some data sets in your functions or in your procedures. So you're giving it to a temporary table just as a variable. You just store there, and later on you're going to retrieve it within the same while loop or whatever loop purposes. right? For example, if you're like trying to do a while loop and then you're just like reading off every single line, maybe you want to use a temporary table to compare something. Okay, so that's third type of schema, which is another schema called temporary table. So we have table, your normal table, you have a view, and you have a temporary table. These are all schemas. All right, so we're jumping into SQL constraint and integrities. Right, so we know about the constraint. We learned about constraint when we learned primary keys and foreign keys. Right? The constraint is, for example, those you cannot have nodes, you cannot have unique duplicates in primary keys, right? And then the foreign keys you cannot have without it already exists as a primary keys from another table, right? All these things we know. Those are the policy, the rules, the constraints, right? Those constraints are there to enforce certain integrities. What are those integrities? For example, you have two tables, and then you have the second table, which is the child table, have referencing from the primary keys of the parent table, right? Now, let me say it again. Your child table has foreign keys. Your parent table has the primary keys, right? Now, this primary keys, imagine is course. Actually, student table, right? And the child table is called the enrollment. Oh no, actually it's called the course table, course roster, right? So your student table has your student ID, which is the primary key, right? And your roster also have student ID, but it says the foreign keys, right? So to know who's in the class. Now, what happened when, by default, what happened when you delete the user in your student table? When you delete one user that's in this course, but you did go ahead and delete that in the student table. First, it will error. It will give you by default, because integrity, right? Because why? Because we said you cannot have foreign keys referentials, foreign keys, when it doesn't exist in your original table, the primary keys, right? So now if you're trying to go and delete Sheng, which is enrolled in this class, it's going to error out because there is a referential integrity that's locking you from deleting it. So by default, it's going to warn you an error now, by default. Got it? Your database, this is what it called, we are basically coming back from what we learned from second class. That primary keys and foreign keys has rules when you're doing that. Not only do they build relationship, but the database also watching for you, watch your back for it. They're looking out for you when this type of things were about to take place. Because you might be the person who developed database, and then someone might be the person who's managing this database, and then letting all these insertion later on all fluke, all fine. But maybe a new person joined 3 years later, and then go ahead and start deleting things that they have no idea what they're deleting. The database is going to watch out for this for you. It's called the referential integrity. Because of constraint, it has the integrity. Now, by default, your database is going to error it out because of this integrity. But you have a choice to specifically alter this behavior. You can actually go ahead and change that behavior, right? By default, it's going to lock you from doing that. But you can do this by doing if you already have the foreign keys, then you have to do alter, right? But if you are adding the foreign keys and you already know that you want to change the behavior, then it would just be adding foreign keys, right? So this is what you will do. Whatever that you're doing with that referencing when you're adding the foreign keys, remember there's always two parentheses, remember this, don't forget. On delete cascade. You have on delete cascade or on delete set no. You have two choices. What does that on delete cascade or on delete set no means? It means that rather than erroring out and not letting user delete the primary keys, now I'm changing the behavior. It's not recommended, but if you have to, your database with the certain privileges, it will allow you to, if you explicitly want to. This is going to break the integrity, but if you're intentionally okay with that, you have two options. On delete, let's say your primary keys today is delete. You can let it be so that your foreign keys also get deleted. You will choose on delete cascade. Cascade means do whatever the same thing as the primary key is done. That's called on delete cascade. Get it? On delete set no means that when the primary key is deleted, the foreign key part on the child table is going to be wiped but has a no value in it. It has a no value in it.
One question.
Yeah.
So let's say it's like a private, that foreign key is a primary key, something else.
Say that again?
That foreign key happens to be a primary key or something else. And you still,
The foreign key happens to be a primary key?
like, let's say user ID, the foreign.
It is the foreign key is always going to be a primary key.
So like, you still set that to no, that primary.
Yeah, you're explicitly setting it. By default, that's what we're saying. By default, because of integrity, the database don't, but we're talking about this is when you're explicitly trying to alter the behavior of a primary table.
Yeah.
So that means that this foreign key is on delete cascade, meaning that that specific foreign keys part, not the entire row, is going to get deleted. In this case, cascade, meaning that that specific value where it stored the foreign key value will get empty out, deleted, right? Because your primary keys is deleted from the parent table. This doesn't normally just happen. No, it doesn't. But if you do this alter table with the specific rights, you can make it intentionally behave like that. This is called you're intentionally changing the integrity. So the cascade means that following what exactly you did on primary keys, which is the delete, then basically that will just be primary keys empty out. But if you say on delete set no, then that specific foreign keys part will be set to no. Okay, so this is cascade and set no. Okay, other than on delete, what if on update? On update, still, when your primary keys originally, that student ID, has been used by someone and that person is enrolled in a class, right? And now Sheng used to have student ID 007. And now I'm a new developer, SQL developer, and then I'm changing the SQL database. And I go ahead and try to change Sheng to 2007 instead. What would happen? The primary key of Sheng. It would pop out an error because that's not allowed by default because of referential integrity, right? Because there is a foreign keys, which is in the forced enrollment table that's using Sheng's primary key, 007. So you cannot just automatically okay to change that to 2007. Understand? There's a foreign keys there, so you cannot change it. But if if your heart really desire and you think that you're doing the right thing, you can change that so that it doesn't follow the integrity. You change that into a different behavior. It's called adding the foreign keys on update. On update, you change that to cascade, meaning that if today I go ahead and change Sheng's student ID from 007 to 2007, then all the table that has the foreign keys of Sheng's primary ID, which is student ID, then all of them change to 2007. Cascade meaning follow whatever it does on the primary key. Set no. Again, I don't know why there's an option here. I don't know if it makes sense. Maybe as some scenario, I don't know. But you can do set no when someone changes your primary keys and you're setting all the foreign keys to none. So they're all alternate. And that's if you want to do that, right? There's an option there, but both of which is breaking the integrity. And first of all, you will understand these are options that's out there available. If you're intentionally going ahead to change the default behavior, but also by learning this sort of opposite of integrity, you know why this referential constraint initially was out there for. You understand? You're learning that from the adversary to know the initial integrity was there for these purposes, basically. Because by default, your database is going to block these behavior unless you specifically want the database to do it. But you need to specifically make it happen, right? Before you go and change anything. Okay, so these are the integrity. Now, let's review some of these that we've seen before. Primary keys, we know. Foreign keys. Unit keys. Unit keys are not really actually like a key, right? Unit keys is just a default settings that you give or you annotate when you're updating or creating a table on the columns, right? You're setting this to be by default cannot be unique, cannot be duplicated ever, that specific value. And you can do that even though it's not a primary key. If you want to specifically never be duplicated, right? For example, maybe, I don't know, like maybe timestamp, I don't know, something, I don't know, but maybe there's something out there by specific column you don't want duplicates. Now, combo keys is just a different type of primary keys that have multiple columns and that combine into one primary keys, right? So that means that that table still only just have one primary keys. It just made out of multiple columns. So that's combo keys. However, since we're here today, after 5th lecture, we know that as more normalization we did, we know that combo keys is a crumbling path as far as normalization goes, right? We start seeing that a lot of tables, as we're normalizing, we start seeing that combo keys are just a path that is just kind of crumbling when you're trying to normalize, right? You start seeing partial dependency, right? In the future, we're going to learn about other dependency problems. But have we seen that? Have you guys start seeing that as we are progressing, right? Combo keys at the very beginning, when we are learning about database and then choosing the keys, it might be a good option, like off the bat, to pick unique, not duplicate value, but you start seeing that those combination keys or composite keys start crumbling when you're going to, especially when you're starting your second normalized form. You don't want partial dependency. We saw that the other day, right? The course and section ID. The section ID and course together does make the primary keys unique, yes. But the section ID has nothing to do with the course name. Right? So it became sort of validation because it's partial dependency. All right, so what about candidate keys? Candidate keys are any single one keys that is in your combination keys. Individually. Also, on top of that, some other keys that are likely, not perfect, but likely be unique enough to be primary keys. That's candidate keys. What is super key? Super key goes back to sets theories. What is supersets?
Like all false.
Yes. That's candidate. Supersets, close.
No duplicates.
Sets is not duplicates, yes, but no. Supersets. Superset is the set plus anything. Super means that you have the set and plus one extra stuff. You understand what I'm saying? For example, you have a primary key, right? And you have a non-attribute column. All that together is a super key. Like just the primary key itself is just primary key or combo key, right? It itself is part of the super key as well. But that plus anything is a super key. Superset super key. Understand? Means that you have the original set plus more. I mean, I don't know why it is specifically being called out that we need to learn that. I've never used that before, but that's what it means. Okay, it goes back to set theories. As you know, database take on algebra and sets a lot, right? We talked about indexing, didn't we? At length. So let's just review what index is meant for, right? Your index are automatically assigned when you have a primary keys. Your primary keys is always indexed. What does that mean? Index just means that whichever column or attribute that has been indexed, it holds a key in the hash map that is stored in the same page as your table. Remember the page that we talked about in the very beginning? We talk about a disk. We talk about multiple disks spinning, right? On that disk, there's tracks, right? The tracks are stored in pages, right? Pages is the basic unit that stores your table on and store like your columns names and then the data on, right? And each of this page is in one of your B tree nodes. That's how the database store positions, right? Now, on that page, it also stored not only your data, your table, and blah, blah, it also store a hash map. That hash map specifically allocates memory for indexes. That means that when you have something that is indexed, that column and attribute has a key in that hash map. What does that hash map do? It knows where the keys is so that it can locate your data very quickly of that columns. That means that that column, if you have any select query, if you have any join, if you have any where, it will be faster retrieved. Understand? Now, that's what index does, is making some highly used attributes or column to be found, calculate, or whatever faster. Right? So if your query is slowing down, one of the things is to make sure that when you're writing code, right? You might think about automate, or maybe not, or I don't know. Like normally when you're writing code, a good coder, you're trying to think about better search, faster search, something that is not redundant, right? And you're not going to do too many list too many arrays back and forth, right? You're always gonna shrink it down and then calculating on a smaller set. That makes it faster, correct? And you're passing around these smaller sets. Just like when you're doing your database calculation, you're calculating smaller sets to make your result faster. This is the second strategy, is making indexes on different columns that if you're searching for some value, if you're doing calculations, when you're doing some conditions, making certain high frequent column an index will make sure that SQL know where the position of those column data are. And as a result, make your query faster. Okay, now, balanced amount of index on a large table is a good practice, but when you're overusing indexes, then it defeats the purpose, right? If you're making every single column an index, then eventually it will be the same, right? But if you have, let's say, 100 columns and you only have like maybe 10 indexes, then that's great. Especially if you're running only queries and joins on those columns a lot. Okay? But primary keys are always by default indexed. And the different type of index we have is cluster index and non-cluster index. And primary keys are the only cluster index there is in SQL in each table. Okay, so that's indexing. Okay, these are, instead of using user interface of database, these are queries that you can do manually, adding, removing, altering columns, adding index to them. Okay, let's look at some of these things. Remember, did we talk about DML and DDL before? Yes? Remember, this is slightly different, but somewhat in common of that. DML and DDL. DML, what is it? Data manipulating, right? DDL is data definition. Remember that? Okay. If you don't remember, that's going to be on exam. So you should go back and then make sure that you look at that. What's the difference between DDL and DML? Okay. Just differentiate what they do. Okay. But over here, let's do a little bit of recap of all the very important and basic SQL they are. Okay. So as far as producing on the structure side and the content side, what's the difference between structure side and content side? Is that the structure and design part doesn't actually alter the actual constituent, which is your data. It just changed the home that's housing these data, right? So for example, when you're changing a table, you're changing the definition of the table. You're using create, right? You're creating a table, for example, right? When you're producing, when you're trying to copy one table to another, you use create as, right? These are all house because the table is the house. When you're altering, right? You're altering, for example, the column name, right? You're changing the index to a column, you use alter, or you're adding a foreign keys. All these doesn't change your actual underlying data. It just changed the definitions of your structure and container. Think about the house that you live in. You're changing the walls, right? You're not killing your brother and sister, right? So I'm sorry, that's a very harsh example, but you understand what I'm saying. The content will live in there. You're not changing it, okay? Removing, use drop. And then the last but not least, helpful is informing. So if you actually want to see how efficient your data table is, you can use explain. We need to explain, select, explain, and then table. What it returns is tell you how many columns, how many keys are there, blah, blah, right? And then we look on this side, is the changing to the content. If you want a table to have more data, what do? You insert more rows, right? And that rows actually adds more data. So you use insert to. If you are copying a table to a brand new table with the data that's already in there, you use select into. When you do create as, you're just creating a duplicate house. Nobody live in that house. If you're doing select into, you're actually copying over the data from that table to the new table. Select into. When you do an update, you're actually trying to go to the row and update individual cell, the number in the cell. That's what the update is. Alter doesn't do that. Alter doesn't change the data value, right? Now, delete. This is very important. When you do delete, you want to always follow by a where clause. If you haven't used delete before, or you haven't practiced delete before, it's similar. It looks very similar to a select query, but it actually go ahead and delete rows and the data in there. If you don't have a where clause and then you just say delete from table, then it delete everything in your table. It's the same as delete all without specifying any where clause. So for your own sake, always have a where clause when you do delete. So that will shrink down, or like you doesn't go ahead and just delete every single data as delete all in the table. It's different from drop though. Because if you drop it, then the table is gone. If you do the drop student table, then table is gone. So for example, if I say delete star from student table, then execute it, let's say it's successfully run, then I do a select star from student table. What will be the result?
An empty
Huh?
table.
Huh?
An empty table.
No, but what would the result? Yes, but the result should say what? Like on your interpreter?
Or like,
No,
0 rows.
it will be 0 rows return. Because you have to understand that 0 row return is not error. It's a valid answer telling you there's no rows in here. This is what you use when you delete. Now, difference is if you do drop student table, then you do select star from student. What would then be the answer? You will actually get an error because the table doesn't exist. Understand the difference between the two? Okay, then the most familiar one, if you're trying to understand data, you use select. Okay? All right, so these, I believe, are explaining that table. Okay, this is explaining, this is good. Okay, last but not least on this slide, just for your own sake, we talk about the privileges, right? There's going to be another lecture that talk about authorization, authentications, more like privileges wise between users. But sometimes, at some points in your life, when you're in your database and you're like, I'm trying to select data from this table and I'm getting an error that this table doesn't exist. Don't worry, sometimes it's not because this table was deleted or dropped. Sometimes you just don't have the privilege and you don't have the permission to read this table or even know this table exists. Okay, database has management and ability to prevent you from even knowing a table even exists, right? If you don't have certain rights. That could happen when you have when you're dealing with a very complicated company and with very complicated data, right? Or very sensitive data. So here's how you can find out who you are, basically who am I, right? When you use Linux system, when you're like trying to find out who is logged on IP address, this is the same thing. it will show you as what kind of user you're logging as. If you're logging as guest and which IP you're logging in as, right? Maybe you're logging as admin, or maybe you're logging as a manager. It will show you that. And then the IP address that you're logging in from, because maybe you're using through cloud or whatever, right? So you have different IP. So this is kind of like, who am I of Linux or Unix system? Okay, this is something just good to know. Okay, so that summarize, conclude out. Obviously, I didn't go over every single slide. You're gonna like read and fill in line with this. And then the next class, I will decide and go back and look at whether or not there's a recording or not, but it won't be in person. The next in person will be in July 13th in the exam. What do you need to bring in July 13th?
And paper in charge.
More than one paper, blank. You need to charge your computer, okay? Any other questions? Yeah,
With the W school, I saw a problem with them they finished the last 30 of them, but it only keeps track of your progress, like during the free trial, like it doesn't show the stuff that you,
yeah, but the free trial is within like,
it's like 7 days.
I thought it used to be 30 days.
I don't know what happened.
On the right, are you talking about the same screenshot I have?
Yeah, like I tried to do an exercise and I realized my trials up and it wasn't keeping track.
Well, still do it, and then just submit whatever you can screenshot and. Or maybe you have to go, can you go back to, no, don't do that, but can you go back to like. The exercise and see if it's finished? Is there a page that do that?
I mean, it just says like free trial and then like. 500 bucks.
Not even the one you finished, like it
Well,
doesn't,
it's just the one that finished, like from the first assignment, but. If I do anything else, it doesn't.
well, okay, well. Figure out, like, see what you can figure out, but you don't have to create a second one, just make sure that you don't go back and duplicate what your work, I guess, like, but you should finish. Remember where you end, the 30th questions, and start from there. And just make sure that you touch every single one of them, so you can practice every single syntax and, stuff, right? And make sure that you catch up on your reading and these lecture notes, okay? And then whether or not the next, on Wednesday, it's gonna be on Zoom or pre-recording, either one will be covered in the exam, right? The exam is from day one to the next specific sessions. Right? Wednesdays, meaning Wednesday is your final one, right? Everything on Wednesday will still be covered. Just remember that. Okay? Any other questions? Anything about the exam? All right, okay, I'll see you then.